This is One on One. Bob Iacullo is the president of United Water. Good to see you, Bob.
Good to see you, Steve.
You've been with us before. I want to get an update here. Let's talk about repairing and expanding U.S. drinking water, the system. Yes. The infrastructure, not a word a lot of people want to talk about. That system in need of repair. How much money are we talking about?
Well, depending on the estimates that you see, the Environmental Protection Agency would say we have to spend about $355 billion over the next 20 years just for water infrastructure. For wastewater infrastructure, it's about another $400 billion, again, over the next 20 years. Other estimates could range as high as $1 trillion.
Yeah, by the way, let's put United Water in perspective. Who do you serve? Where do you serve?
Well, we serve a number of almost 7.5 million people throughout the United States, have operations in about 21 states, and own both water and wastewater utilities, as well as operate water and wastewater utilities for municipal clients.
Bob, let's play this out for a second. Where does New Jersey rank in terms of our investment, in terms of protecting our water supply compared to other states?
Well, I think we do a pretty good job here in New Jersey. And if you looked at the 5 major private investor-owned utilities, we probably spend close to $80 million a year on what we would say distribution system improvements, really getting the water out and delivering it. But if you looked at the replacement cycle for underground infrastructure, the pipes that we don't see, it's probably anywhere in the 200 to 800 year range. Obviously, the facilities don't last 800 years.
Right.
You're talking about, again, underground infrastructure having an average service life of about 75 years. So we need to start replacing these underground assets that were put in the ground more than 50 years ago after World War II. But for many of our older cities, you know, that infrastructure has been in the ground fairly long.
Bob, is it the kind of thing where a lot of policymakers and the rest of us really just don't want to talk about this? We'd rather not hear what you're saying right now because it makes us uncomfortable, because ultimately we got to make a decision. And if we don't make a decision, obviously a decision is going to be made for us because something not good's going to happen. I don't want to play a doomsday scenario, but nothing good's going to happen here.
No, I mean, you know, you could sit back and do nothing and keep deferring the investments that are needed. Right now, the American Society of Civil Engineers would say that there's about $11 billion gap in what needs to be spent per year. And that's, again, just on the water side. So you could sit back and make some investments, but not make enough. And it's almost like that old Fram oil commercial, pay me now or pay me later. But you know, if we pay you later, it's going to cost much more.
Well, then why can't, but why can't we have an honest discussion and say, like the Fram commercial, you either could pay this much now, which would cost each one of us this, or pay a heck of a lot more later, which would cost this much more for each one of us. So let's be honest, the way we are with our own families, when it comes to vacation, when it comes to the new car, when it comes to the things we say we want to do versus the things we need to do, is it that unrealistic that we can have a mature conversation?
No, I mean, it's a matter of prioritizing, and the fact is that it's going to result in increases in water-related services. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the significance of this investment is probably going to result in water bills doubling or tripling over the next 20 years. But you also have to keep that in perspective, that what Americans pay for water in particular, you know, average of $400 a year, and it makes up such a small percentage of the average household income that it really won't have a tremendous impact. You know, people tend to look at percentages and say, oh, water rates are going to go up 10% or you're going to go up 20%, but it's really 20% of a small base. But there's no doubt, you know, the infrastructure is aging. If we leave it alone, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have more breaks, main breaks, and other failures. That's going
to. And then what happens? A big break. Good. Play that out. A big break happens. Well, a water break happens. We jump into it in the media. There's a big report, and then a government official say, "Hey, why didn't you guys tell us this was going to happen? It's your fault."
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, it's a Monday morning quarterbacking. You can look at after the fact, but you know, we need to be more aggressive, and there's ways of doing it. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing is trying to plan, first of all, making sure you have your asset management plans in place, which are long-term views of what you need to do for renewal, replacement, and repair of your assets. But then you also need to attract capital. Significant.
What does that mean? It sounds jargony to me. Attract capital.
Attracting the necessary financing and funding to make these infrastructure investments. And I would say what you're looking to do too is trying to attract more private investment, but there are some impediments to
things that get in the way of that?
Things that get in the way, particularly one of the issues that the water industry has been working on is what private activity bonds. These are bonds that are issued on behalf of a state or local government that are used to finance projects by a private user, such as water-related projects.
Right.
But what exists right now is caps on the volume of bonds that could be issued by a state for all-purpose water or wastewater projects.
Because?
Well, because there's only so much that'll be allocated to a state because they are tax exempt and it does have impacts. But so right now, water projects, we have to get in line for our funding. Knock on wood, we've not had problems in New Jersey. We've been able to issue significant amounts of tax exempt financing, which goes to the benefit of our customers, keeps rates lower because you're using that low cost financing. But this is what, you have this in place now that you could run into those. We ran into it in the state of New York where we're looking for tax-exempt financing for a specific project. And it took us more than 2 years to finally get that financing in place.
You know, before I let you out here, we just recently did a live call-in with Governor Christie. And it's interesting, I think you guys are one of the underwriters of that program. And what's interesting is that no one called up and talked about water. No one asked them about water. But if we had a major water main break, and if we had a crisis, they'd ask about water, right?
Oh, they sure would.
Here's the thing. Should we be bringing up the issue? Should we be driving the issue in the media? Is that our job before, God forbid, it happens?
Well, that certainly would be helpful because what happens is we tend to take our water service for granted. You turn on the faucet, it's there. You flush your toilet, it's there. So we kind of are lulled into this, kind of a bit of a false sense of security in thinking that we don't need to do anything. And again, we don't see some of this infrastructure because it's buried below the ground. I mean, fortunately, in New Jersey, we are taking some measures. The New Jersey Board of Public Utilities just recently put out for rulemaking a proposal that would allow us to accelerate the replacement of our aging infrastructure. It's called a Distribution System Improvement Charge. Right. So instead of waiting for a rate case, which could take 2 years, to get your return on your investment, you'll get it on a more accelerated basis. So therefore, it enables you to make your investments more timely. It'll avoid disruptions in service, avoids rate shock, and it actually also creates jobs.
That's a good thing. By the way, Bob Hanna, the new president of the BPU, will be joining us on our sister program, Capital Report, New Jersey Capital Report. Log on to our website. We'll link you back there, and we'll be also raising this issue with him.
Great.
Bob Iacullo, president of United Water, thank you for joining us, talking about what may be an invisible issue for some, but is an incredibly important issue for all of us. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it. Stay right there.
Thank you.
One-on-one. We'll continue right after this. Thank you, Bob.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Johnson & Johnson, Health First New Jersey, TD Bank, the Russell Berry Foundation, and by Community Education Centers. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and northjersey.com. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.